Before CGI ruled adventure films, Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade closed the original trilogy with heart, humor, and breathtaking craft. Spielberg fused myth and family drama into one of cinema's most human blockbusters. What looked effortless on screen was anything but. Miniatures, handmade props, real explosions, and once-in-a-lifetime improvisations filled every frame. From secret rewrites to invisible bridges, here are behind-the-scenes secrets that reveal how this film became both a grand adventure and a proper goodbye. But first, let's start with why Spielberg almost never made this movie at all. Number 1. Spielberg's reluctant return. The director behind Raiders of the Lost Ark had no interest in returning to the Indiana Jones franchise. After Temple of Doom, Steven Spielberg felt creatively exhausted by pulp adventure and wanted to move on to different projects. The darker tone of the second film had left him unsatisfied, and he considered the series finished. But George Lucas had one more pitch that changed everything. A father-son story that would reframe the entire quest as emotional reconciliation rather than just another treasure hunt. This wasn't about finding another artifact, it was about two broken men learning to understand each other. Spielberg later described it as a movie about forgiveness disguised as a treasure hunt. That single concept gave the trilogy its soul and brought Spielberg back to the director's chair. What could have been a hollow cash grab became the most emotionally resonant film of the series. The reluctant return became the perfect farewell. Number 2. Ford's pain looked real by design. Every wince, every strained landing, every labored movement from Indiana Jones felt authentic because Harrison Ford demanded it that way. Interestingly, Ford's knee injury actually happened during Raiders of the Lost Ark, not during Last Crusade. By 1989, he was completely healthy and could have performed the role with ease. Instead, Ford insisted that Indy should still feel mortal and vulnerable. He told Spielberg he wanted audiences to wince with him, so every punch, every hard landing, and every slip was performed with deliberate strain and visible effort. The philosophy was simple but effective. If Indy doesn't bleed, nobody believes him. This commitment to physical authenticity separated Indiana Jones from invincible action heroes of the era. Ford's choice to show pain rather than hide it made every action sequence feel consequential. The result was a hero audiences worried about, not just cheered for. Number 3. Connery's one-liner that stopped filming. One of the most memorable lines in the entire film wasn't in the original script at all. During the scene where Elsa's true allegiance is revealed, Sean Connery delivered an improvised line that brought production to a complete halt. When Indiana Jones realizes his father had also been intimate with Elsa, Connery casually remarked, "She talks in her sleep." The entire crew erupted in laughter, and cameras stopped rolling as everyone processed the perfect timing and dry delivery. Spielberg immediately loved the mischievous wit behind it and decided to keep the improvisation in the final cut. It became an instant classic that audiences quoted for decades. The moment perfectly captured what made Last Crusade special. Humor, not heroics, stole the show. Connery's effortless charm and impeccable comic timing proved that sometimes the best dialogue comes from the actor, not the page. That single line defined the playful dynamic between father and son better than pages of scripted banter ever could. Number 4. Dad was barely older than Junior. The casting of Sean Connery as Harrison Ford's father created an unusual challenge. Connery was only 12 years older than Ford in real life. On paper, the age gap seemed too small to sell the illusion of a father-son relationship spanning decades. Yet somehow, it worked perfectly. Connery's tweed suits, calm demeanor, and professorial delivery completely sold the illusion of a generational divide. His performance leaned into dignity and old-world refinement, making him feel like he belonged to a different era entirely. Meanwhile, Ford's rugged physicality and impulsive energy created the perfect contrast. Their chemistry turned what could have been unintentional parody into believable family tension. Tom Stoppard's whip-smart dialogue gave them verbal sparring matches that felt lived-in and authentic. The 12-year age difference disappeared completely on screen, replaced by a father and son who felt like they'd been clashing for a lifetime. Number 5. The pantsless Zeppelin incident. One of the most refined and elegant scenes in the film hides an absurd secret that the camera never reveals. The sophisticated conversation aboard the Zeppelin, where father and son discuss their complicated relationship, looks like the height of cinematic class. But below the frame, dignity completely disappeared. Studio lights overheated the Zeppelin set to unbearable temperatures, making full costumes impossible to wear. Ford and Connery filmed the entire sequence waist up, while wearing nothing but boxers from the waist down. Spielberg later joked that it was the most dignified scene ruined below frame. The crew worked hard to maintain professionalism, while two of cinema's biggest stars conducted a heartfelt conversation in their underwear. The contrast between the polished performances on screen and the reality behind the camera became one of the production's favorite stories. Sometimes movie magic requires sacrificing a little dignity. Number 6. The tank that never existed. The climactic desert chase features one of the most impressive practical effects in the entire trilogy, a massive armored vehicle that looks like it belongs in a museum. The Hatai tank wasn't a lightweight movie prop or a painted facade. It was a fully functioning 28-ton steel vehicle built over an excavator base that could actually drive and support actors. Designer George Gibbs modeled it loosely on a World War I Mark VIII tank, creating something that felt historically plausible while remaining visually striking. The vehicle could move on its own power across the Spanish desert, and its structural integrity was strong enough to support stunt performers fighting on top of it during high-speed sequences. This commitment to practical construction made every moment of the tank chase thrillingly real. The weight, movement, and danger were all genuine, giving the sequence an authenticity that no amount of special effects could replicate. Number 7. The secret writer who rebuilt the script. Behind every quotable line in Last Crusade stands an uncredited genius who transformed the screenplay. Renowned playwright Tom Stoppard performed a complete page-one polish that rewrote nearly every scene. His contribution went far beyond minor tweaks. He rebuilt the dialogue to sharpen both humor and emotional depth throughout the entire film. Stoppard created the charm in the diary scenes, refined the father-son rhythm until it sang, and injected literary wit into what could have been standard action banter. His theatrical background brought a precision to character voices that elevated the script from functional to memorable. The irony is that Stoppard's name appears nowhere in the credits, yet his fingerprints cover the entire film. Spielberg later admitted, "Tom practically wrote every line you quote today." The screenplay became a masterclass in adventure dialogue, and audiences never knew they were hearing one of Britain's greatest playwrights at work. Number 8. The Venice boat chase illusion. The exhilarating chase through Venetian canals looks like it was filmed entirely in the floating city, but only half of that thrilling sequence actually took place in Italy. The production shot establishing shots and safer maneuvers in real Venice, capturing the authentic architecture and waterways that made the location so iconic. However, the explosions, dangerous stunts, and more destructive moments were filmed weeks later at Tilbury Docks in England. The industrial location outside London was dressed to match Venetian aesthetics, and stunt coordinators had the freedom to create spectacular mayhem without damaging historical landmarks. The result fooled audiences completely, turning practical limitations into invisible artistry. This clever approach allowed Spielberg to deliver spectacle while respecting the real city's heritage and navigating complex international filming regulations. Number 9. River Phoenix, young Indy by Ford's choice. Casting the opening prologue required finding an actor who could convincingly portray a younger Indiana Jones without resorting to cheap imitation. Harrison Ford personally suggested River Phoenix after working with him on The Mosquito Coast, recognizing something special in the young actors to capture essence rather than mimicry. Phoenix studied Ford's physical mannerisms instead of trying to copy his voice or facial expressions. He focused on body language, the smirk, the stance, the quick shrug, creating physical continuity that felt organic rather than calculated. The youthful performance set up Indy's lifelong mix of intellectual curiosity and chaotic action perfectly. Phoenix's portrayal showed audiences exactly how a bookish professor became a globe-trotting adventurer, and he did it without ever feeling like an impression. Number 10. Utah's desert meets Colorado's train. The Boy Scout prologue that opens the film creates a seamless sense of place, yet it was actually stitched together from two completely different American locations. Utah's magnificent red rock arches provided the sweeping desert landscapes that gave the sequence its epic western feel, while Colorado contributed the vintage steam railway that young Indy leaps aboard. The combination of these two distinct environments created a nostalgic, classic western atmosphere that felt both timeless and specifically American. The desert majesty and period-accurate locomotives transported audiences back to 1912, evoking the adventure serials that originally inspired George Lucas and Steven Spielberg. Location scouts deliberately chose places that would echo the storytelling style of old Hollywood westerns and Saturday matinee cliffhangers. By blending Utah's natural grandeur with Colorado's railway heritage, the filmmakers created a prologue that announced this film would honor the past while delivering modern thrills. Number 11. The Church That Played a Library. One of the film's most memorable locations demonstrates how seamlessly reality and fabrication can blend on screen. Venice's San Barnaba Church stood in for the exterior of the library where Indy digs up ancient clues, providing authentic Italian architecture and atmosphere. The production filmed establishing shots at the real church to ground the sequence in genuine Venetian beauty. However, the interiors were entirely studio builds constructed at Elstree Studios in England. Production designers packed the sets with breakaway marble, fake mosaics, and elaborate booby trap rigs that could be safely triggered during action sequences. The cut between real Venetian exteriors and British studio interiors remains completely invisible to audiences. This technique allowed the filmmakers to capture authentic location beauty while maintaining complete control over the dangerous action sequences. Number 12. The seagulls were trained pigeons. The chaotic scene where hundreds of birds take flight in Venice required creative problem-solving behind the camera. Animal welfare regulations barred the production from using wild seagulls, forcing the crew to find alternatives that would still sell the illusion convincingly. Trainers brought in pigeons and doves that could be safely handled and directed during filming. The crew combined live-action footage with stock footage of actual seagulls, editing them together to create the appearance of hundreds of birds erupting into flight. Sean Connery's perfectly timed umbrella choreography and smart editorial choices sold the illusion completely. The comedy beat worked because of patience and careful planning, rather than dangerous improvisation. Animal handlers ensured every bird was treated humanely, while still delivering the chaotic visuals Spielberg wanted. Number 13. Spain, the hidden star of the desert. The sprawling desert and tank chase sequences that define the film's climax weren't shot in the Middle East at all. Spain's Almeria region became the stand-in location, a landscape already famous for hosting countless spaghetti westerns throughout the 1960s and 70s. The area's dramatic terrain and reliable weather made it perfect for large-scale action filming. Production crews built massive tracks in the sand to accommodate the 28-ton tank and support vehicles. The Mediterranean sun mimicked Middle Eastern light perfectly, and the barren landscape stretched for miles without modern intrusions. Almeria's film-friendly infrastructure and experienced local crews made the ambitious sequences possible within budget and schedule. What appears on screen as exotic Middle Eastern adventure was actually European filmmaking expertise at its finest. Number 14. Petra's Treasury, a tourism explosion. Jordan's Al-Khazna, the ancient temple carved into rose-red cliffs, became an overnight global icon after appearing as the Holy Grail's resting place. Before 1989, Petra drew only a few thousand adventurous tourists annually who were willing to make the difficult journey. The archaeological site was known primarily to academics and dedicated travelers. After Last Crusade premiered, visitor numbers exploded exponentially as audiences worldwide wanted to see the place where Indiana Jones found the Holy Grail. The Jordanian Tourism Board immediately recognized the film's impact and began promoting Petra using that exact phrase in international marketing campaigns. The film's influence on Petra's tourism continues decades later, with hundreds of thousands of visitors arriving annually. A single film transformed a nation's economy and brought worldwide attention to one of humanity's greatest archaeological treasures. Number 15. 2,000 rats, all on the payroll. The Venice catacomb sequences required an army of rodents, but health and safety laws made using wild rats completely impossible. The production raised more than 2,000 clean-bred rats specifically for filming, each one carefully monitored by animal welfare handlers. Every rat was trained to run toward light sources, making them easier to direct during takes. For shots involving fire or other hazards, the production used rubber and mechanical doubles to protect the live animals. Animal handlers monitored every single take to ensure no rats were harmed or stressed during the chaotic sequences. The commitment to animal welfare meant production moved slower, but the results looked authentic and no creatures suffered. The catacomb scenes succeeded because of meticulous planning rather than reckless spectacle. Audiences saw terrifying swarms of rats without knowing the elaborate care taken behind the scenes. The sequence demonstrated that even in 1989, filmmakers could create visceral thrills while treating animals ethically and responsibly. Number 16. The Invisible Bridge Illusion. The leap of faith moment stands as one of cinema's most iconic visual puzzles, achieved entirely through practical effects rather than computer trickery. The bridge spanning the chasm was a real physical structure built by the production team, not a digital creation added in post-production. Its surface was meticulously painted to match the canyon floor below from one specific camera angle. When Indy throws sand onto the invisible path, audiences finally see what was hiding in plain sight all along. A brilliant optical illusion that fooled everyone. The effect required precise camera positioning and expert painting to maintain the illusion. Any slight change in angle would have revealed the trick immediately. The sequence worked because it trusted audiences to believe their eyes while simultaneously deceiving them. No computers, no green screens, just clever design and perfect execution. The invisible bridge became a metaphor for faith itself, real but unseen until you take the leap. Number 17. Donovan's death and digital magic. The villain's horrifying rapid aging sequence pushed the boundaries of visual effects for its time. The transformation was created through multiple layers of puppetry and early computer morphing technology, representing one of cinema's pioneering uses of digital transitions. Industrial light and magic composited the various elements seamlessly, blending practical makeup effects with cutting-edge digital techniques. The effect looked entirely practical, even though it represented some of the earliest morphing work in Hollywood. Different stages of aging were achieved through prosthetic makeup, animatronic heads, and finally skeletal remains, with computer morphing smoothing the transitions between each stage. What makes the sequence remarkable is how it holds up decades later. The combination of practical and digital effects created something more convincing than either technique could achieve alone. Number 18. The Cup of Christ was made of clay. Finding the Holy Grail required more than special effects. It demanded a powerful visual statement about humility and faith. Art teams sculpted dozens of ornate, jewel-encrusted chalices that looked appropriately majestic and valuable. These elaborate cups seemed like obvious choices for the most sought-after religious artifact in history. Spielberg rejected them all and chose a rough, unglazed cup hand-thrown by a British potter. Its simplicity and humble appearance embodied the film's central theme. The true grail belongs to those who seek quietly, not greedily. The plain clay cup looked like something a carpenter from Nazareth would actually use. The prop became a moral statement that resonated far beyond its screen time. Spielberg understood that the Grail's power came from its ordinariness, not its grandeur. A simple potter's craft became the key to immortality, teaching audiences that true value often hides in plain sight. Number 19. Berlin's book-burning night was British. The chilling Nazi rally scene appears to transport audiences directly to 1933 Berlin, but it was actually staged at Stowe School in Buckinghamshire, England. Thousands of extras, flame bars, and industrial wind machines transformed the tranquil British courtyard into one of history's darkest moments. Period vehicles, authentic costumes, and meticulous set dressing completed the illusion. The production's attention to historical detail made the scene disturbingly convincing. Choreographed crowd movements and careful camera angles disguised the English architecture completely. The flames, smoke, and dramatic lighting created an atmosphere of genuine menace that felt transported directly from archival footage. It remains one of the most convincing foreign historical sequences ever shot on English soil. The scene's power comes from treating the subject matter with appropriate gravity rather than exploitation. The production created historical authenticity while filming hundreds of miles from the actual location. Number 20. The real Nazis who crashed the set. During the night shoot of the Berlin rally sequence, an unsettling incident reminded everyone that hatred wasn't confined to history books. A handful of real neo-Nazis arrived uninvited at the location, having somehow learned about the filming. They mistook the carefully constructed historical recreation for an actual political rally celebrating their ideology. Security personnel quickly identified the intruders and removed them from the set before they could disrupt filming. Production resumed after a brief pause, but the incident left the cast and crew shaken. The chilling interruption demonstrated that the evil depicted in the film still walked the earth decades later. The encounter reinforced why telling stories about confronting hatred remains important. Spielberg and the crew weren't just making entertainment, they were creating a reminder of why vigilance against extremism matters. The uninvited visitors proved that Indiana Jones's fight against fascism wasn't purely historical fantasy. Number 21. Spielberg's hidden Hitchcock moment. Sharp-eyed fans watching the airport terminal scene have spotted something unusual that might be more than coincidence. A shadowed figure visible in the background bears a striking resemblance to Steven Spielberg himself, prompting decades of speculation about whether the director included a cameo. Though Spielberg never officially confirmed his appearance, crew members have consistently teased that it was intentional. The possible cameo would represent a playful homage to Alfred Hitchcock's famous tradition of appearing briefly in his own films. Hitchcock made his cameos a signature element, and Spielberg grew up admiring that self-aware playfulness. The ambiguity adds to the charm. Whether real or imagined, the cameo gives audiences something to search for on repeat viewings. The shadowed figure became part of the film's mythology, debated by fans who love hunting for hidden details. Number 22. X marks the spot was Spielberg's joke. One of the film's cleverest moments works as an inside joke for longtime fans of the franchise. When Indy discovers the X marking the Grail's location on the library floor, it deliberately contradicts his own lecture from Raiders of the Lost Ark, where he insists X never ever marks the spot. Spielberg admitted the contradiction was his private gag, intentionally subverting Indy's earlier certainty. The moment rewarded audiences who paid attention across the trilogy while signaling the series' lighter, more nostalgic tone. It demonstrated that Last Crusade wasn't afraid to poke fun at its own mythology. The self-aware humor made Indy feel more human. Even experts get proven wrong by their own adventures. This playful contradiction perfectly captured what made the third film special. It honored the franchise's history while refusing to take itself too seriously. Spielberg understood that the best way to close a trilogy wasn't with self-importance, but with a knowing wink at everyone who'd been paying attention. Number 23. Slocum's final masterpiece. The film's luminous, sun-worn cinematography came from a legendary artist working under extraordinary circumstances. Veteran cinematographer Douglas Slocum was nearly blind by 1988. His vision severely diminished after decades behind the camera. Yet he relied on instinct, memory, and an intimate understanding of light to create some of the most beautiful images of his career. Slocum's warm tones and classic contrasts gave Last Crusade its timeless, nostalgic quality. His lighting choices evoked Golden Age Hollywood while serving the story's emotional beats perfectly. Every frame felt carefully composed, yet never artificial, balancing technical precision with artistic soul. Last Crusade became Slocum's final film, a luminous farewell to a legendary career that spanned decades. The fact that he achieved such beautiful work while losing his sight makes the accomplishment even more remarkable. His final contribution to cinema proved that true mastery transcends physical limitations. Number 24. Faith and filmmaking in the temple. The Holy Grail Temple's 3 trials combined practical filmmaking techniques into sequences that felt both mystical and grounded. Full-scale mechanical traps, matte paintings, and miniature sets created the deadly challenges without relying on digital shortcuts. Each trial was meticulously choreographed to balance spectacle with believable physics. Spielberg described his goal as wanting to make faith visible through physics, finding ways to represent spiritual tests through tangible dangers. The spinning blades, crumbling letters, and invisible bridge all functioned as real physical challenges that actors navigated. The commitment to practical effects made every moment feel consequential rather than artificial. The temple sequences demonstrated that craftsmanship and creativity could achieve what technology couldn't. Audiences believed in the trials because they were real constructions following real physical laws. The practical approach turned abstract concepts like faith and humility into visceral, suspenseful cinema. Number 25. Riding into the sunset for real. The trilogy's perfect closing image was captured in a single take that couldn't be replicated or manufactured. Production filmed the final shot at actual sunset in Utah, racing against fading light to capture the golden hour. The silhouettes of Indy, Henry, Sala, and Marcus riding away together became cinema's ultimate curtain call, enhanced by Tom Stoppard's emotionally resonant dialogue. The timing had to be perfect. Too early and the light wouldn't match. Too late and the shot would be lost entirely. Spielberg and cinematographer Douglas Slocum positioned the camera to capture the natural beauty as the sun dipped toward the horizon. The result was a moment of pure cinematic magic that felt both triumphant and bittersweet. That single sunset transformed a simple ending into something timeless. The 4 friends riding toward the horizon represented not just the end of one adventure, but the close of an entire trilogy. Natural light, perfect timing, and emotional storytelling combine to create an image that remains etched in film history. Every adventure ages, but The Last Crusade endures because it marries spectacle with sincerity. Its biggest miracles weren't computer-made. They were built, painted, performed, and felt. Harrison Ford's authenticity, Sean Connery's wit, Tom Stoppard's invisible pen, and Douglas Slocum's fading light gave the trilogy a human heartbeat. The film succeeded because Spielberg made it personal, a meditation on fathers, sons, and forgiveness wrapped in globe-trotting adventure. If you enjoyed uncovering these truths, hit like and subscribe to tell the algorithm this adventure was worth the chase. Which secret impressed you most? The invisible bridge, the handmade grail, or the fearless humor behind the fedora? Tell us in the comments.